Okay, class, now with this, in the next series of lectures, we're going to get down, I suppose you might say, into the weeds, so to speak, of how a case study can be put together. Okay? So we're just going to go through it. Now, as we go through it, when I was teaching in the past, one of the students would say, are these rules or are these guidelines? I think something harkening back to the Pirates of the Caribbean. And I realized that maybe the question, when it was asked, was somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but then the more I thought about it, I thought, yes, there are things that are absolute rules, and there are things that are more guideline-esque. So what I've done as we go through this is you'll see that the slides actually lay out, this is the rules, and these are the guidelines. Guidelines are a little bit objectives to aspire to, whereas the rules, if you depart from them, you do so at your own peril. So let's go through that and see what I mean, okay? First one, now, these, as they would say in the Pirates of the Caribbean, these be rules. APA format, we discussed this before. APA format is key. It is expected that every paper that you generate within the MBA program meets this requirement, okay? And there are professors that will be very strict on this, and you'll lose points if you don't comply with it. I realize we're in a more of a nascent, starting for many of you, situation. So we'll start out, since we're in that situation, learning and just appreciating that this is what we're going to aspire to and achieve as we go through. So, APA format, what does it mean? First thing is you've got to set your computers up so they're always in Times New Roman with a 12 pitch. That's necessary. Your margins, these are default margins in Word, but make sure you got 1 inch all the way around. Every single paper you hand in has to have a cover page. It has to be business appropriate. In other words, you don't want to use, for lack of a better expression, funky colors. It's as if you were going to hand it in for a professional review. That means it's going to have the title of the work, it's going to have your name, it's going to have the date of submission. Okay? So cover page is necessary. All your references have to be in APA format. Again, if you're working with Word, there are settings that you can put in so that you can put the references in and the machine will automatically do it. So there's no reason to have to go online and find a site on Google that tells you this is the format and then to go through the machinations of making sure you got it right. If you go to Word, just learn how to use the program. It'll put all your references in APA format. All your pages obviously have to be paginated. You don't put the page number on it. We don't know how to refer back to one section or another. And everything's double-spaced. Okay? So these are rules. When you go to write or go to hand it in, make sure you've complied with all of these rules. Okay? Next. Now these are guidelines. And this is, as we go forward with our discussions, as I said at the outset, generally what I want to aim for is something that's 5 pages long. It is very easy to write 10 or 20 pages that just goes on and on and on, but it's very hard to write 5 pages that really are on point. And that's what we're seeking to do here, to be able to write a really cogent, tight paper. So, executive summary. This is the first section that we're going to be discussing in detail in a little while. It summarizes the critical facts, the issues, and the conclusions. It's an overview, hence the word summary. For our purposes, it's 3 or 4 sentences long. Okay? Do not make it, in the case of, I heard the IRS that makes an executive summary for its annual report of 200 pages. That's not an executive summary, nobody's going to read it. Executive summaries should be tight, small, and say this is where you're at. Normally, I've seen them at a maximum for an extremely long presentation, and I mean something on the order of maybe 100 pages. It might be a page or 2 long, but it hits the critical facts, is the idea. You can read it and know where you're at, orients you right away. The issue of the dilemma presented is 1 sentence long. We're going to be discussing how to frame an issue, but it's only 1 sentence. The facts. The facts are the facts. They are the facts that are going to be said inside of the case study. What are the most important things? First off, you're always linear. Okay? In other words, facts have a start, a middle, and an end. Don't jump around. Start at the beginning, end at the end, throw in the middle. They're concise. In other words, choose what's important. I don't need to know all the facts of the case, just as in life, you don't need all the facts of what's going on in your factory, right? You need to know what is pertinent to the issue that you're discussing. So you're going to be concise. You're going to choose what's important. Your analysis states an idea, it supports it, and it concludes. Okay? I always like to liken in the analysis that you're building a sandwich. Okay? At the start and at the end, just like if it was the bread, Wonder Bread, okay, you're almost restating the same thing. And in the middle is the meat. It's the piece that you're arguing about, that you're saying, this is why I'm right. Okay? The sky is blue. This is the reason the sky is blue, and I just showed you the sky is blue. It's that sequence is very important to use because it reinforces to the reader that you know what you're talking about, you've talked about it, and you're right. Okay? Now, conclusion. Conclusion, again, is going to state what the issue, the dilemma was, and that you resolved it, or your analysis shows how to resolve it. Okay? It's very brief for us, 3 sentences long, because you know what you see is set it up that in here is where 5 sentences. I'm really constraining you in that situation. It could be longer than that. But what we're trying to set up here is that up here is short, right? The summary and the issue. Not a lot of room you have to use up in the paper there. And your conclusion is short because you've proved it. What more is there to say? Okay? So it leaves this piece in the middle where you're laying out the facts and you're doing your analysis, okay, is where you have space to prove what it is you want to discuss. Your references are on the end of the paper, obviously. Now, this is something that I think you should really understand there is a difference to. Words going to really matter to us. If you want to discuss, or you want to give me a list of the references cited, that's fine. But realize it's a small list. It's what you cited up in the paper. Okay? So if you've only cited 4 or 5 papers in the paper, then your references, cited references, there's going to be 4 or 5 of them. Okay? Now, on the other hand, if in arriving at this conclusion, you had to do an enormous amount of research, you had to review 15 or 16 different references to make sure you had the right analysis. Now you're doing something different. Okay? And your references would now be references reviewed. In other words, I'm not citing them all to you, but I looked at all these references. And the idea here is if you use the reviewed option, you're saying to the reader, okay, I did a lot of research here, so I'm not talking through my hat. Here are all the different places you can look if you want more information. Okay? And sometimes you want to say that because you want to be able to force your point home, that this isn't just a small thought process, it's something we've done a lot of research on. Other times, you want to be, you're presenting an argument, and you don't want to give somebody who might be contrary to you ammunition to come back against you, right? So in that situation, you go with references cited. In other words, you're going to limit what the person has to come back at you with the references that are the strongest. Why are they the strongest? Because you used them in your case study. So you just realize that there are different ways to present references. There are different purposes in presenting references. And it's all in how you caption this piece of it that is very important. Okay? Now we finally do some more rules. Okay? I came up with 5 basic rules that I think you should always follow. Okay? The first one is we write for taste, not tonnage. In other words, we're going to write 5 pages. We're going to write really good 5 pages, which is hard, versus 20 that may go on and on and on. Okay? So taste, not tonnage. We want to get the job done. Every word will be working for us. Next, always make sure you cite your references. This is how you get in trouble. Okay? You could be doing great, okay? But you don't tell them that, it came from this position over here, this position paper, or it came from this references or whatever, okay? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this guy over here came up with a great idea and I want to repeat it. A matter of fact, okay, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. What we want to do is improve on the wheel. So if somebody's already come up with an idea, it's okay for you to tell me that this idea exists, but let's give them credit. Always cite everything do it right to the text, okay? I don't know that you came from someplace unless you cite it in the text. And again, you can set up your computer to be able to do that. Next, always proofread before you hand it in. This goes with anything that you may do, okay? Always want to make sure that you proofread it, that you haven't made any errors. Finally, make sure that make sure that the length of the paper follows what the professor is assigning. And this goes for me as well as anybody else. If you go too long, the professor's going to stop reading. If you go too short, it's like, well, why didn't he or she use all of the room that I gave her? So the idea is that if we give you 5 pages to work with, then use the 5 pages. Don't come in at 2 and think, I got it done, okay? Because I might have thought you need at least 5. At the same time, don't give us 10 or 20 pages because we said 5. And there's a purpose to the 5, okay? So really look at what the length is and see what's behind that. Always ask why. Why are you doing that? That's okay. And then finally, this one. Have a disinterested person read the paper and see if it makes sense. Now, I would say, you know, have your mother read it, or your wife, your husband. If they're old enough, have your kids read it. If they can read an article or something that you've written, okay, and then tell you this is what you're thinking, you've written it very, very well. Because there's a person who has absolutely no knowledge of what you were writing about. They're able to absorb the information that you gave them, and they're able to communicate it back to you. That means you were clear, you were concise, you were linear, you did a great job. Now, if you give it to them and they read it, and at the end of it they say, I have no idea what you're talking about here, then you should say to yourself, wow, there's a problem. Okay, because it could be one of two things. One, it could be very, very complex. Okay, in which case, you ask why or what don't you understand, and see if you give them that kernel of knowledge that they need, they can understand it. Okay? Or B, if it was not so much a simple idea, but it should have been clear, and they didn't get it, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong here? That they're not able to absorb what it is I'm telling them. There's nothing wrong with this. This is great. Okay? To have the disinterested person read it and have them understand it. I'll let you know a little anecdote here. James Q. Wilson, who my sister studied under, was a very prominent scholar in the world of government. Okay? Used to say, have your mother read it. And if she doesn't understand it, then you have a problem. Okay? And he did all of his education, all of his teaching that way, saying, have your mom read it. Because mothers are very intuitive, and if they can't read it, they're also probably the people that don't mind telling you very clearly, I don't understand what's going on here, you better get back to the drawing board, okay? So you want to always have a disinterested person read it, okay? And that is a rule. Okay, so these are the rules and the guidelines that we operate under. We've got the format, we know that. And so the next series of lectures that we're going to have as you go through this process is to actually look at the content of the sections as we go forward, okay? So that's where we're at, and we'll see you in the next video. Well, we're going to start with the executive summary, okay? And then we'll track through the individual pieces.